swear I love you. Everybody's listening, nobody's tripping. This life too crazy, everybody's flipping. This life so crazy, run and tell your friends. You on the right side, there's no need to pretend. This an open forum, never done before. There's a future, missing this is a no. No cousins, you can learn something, no bugging. No extra charge, just switch for me buzzing. We don't really care if you're right or you're wrong. Just tune into Miss KiKi with your time and time.
Hey, KiKi, it's time to play. It's time to play. Devil's advocate. Hey, KiKi, it's PDA. It's time to play. Devil's advocate.
As we go a little something like this. Hit it!
At some point, you will be offended by something said on this show. But playing devil's advocate is meant to be a forum for open, honest, and more importantly, judgment-free dialogue. The opinions expressed here may not necessarily be those of the host or of the show in general, but we're willing to have the uncomfortable conversations so that we can heal and find solutions for our listeners and quite possibly even ourselves. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Playing Devil's Advocate. I am your host, Miss KiKi, the consummate provocateur, and for the next 120 minutes, we are going to entertain you. That means for the next 2 hours, you're going to be educated and entertained. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, but before I could do any of that, y'all know I got to do some light housekeeping. So for those of you guys, if this is your first time joining us, we are here each and every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, and 10 p.m. to you guys on the East Coast. All right, if you happen to miss a live broadcast, you're right here on YouTube right now. All you have to do is click on it and watch one of the previous episodes. It's just that simple. And if for any reason you need more information about me, our co-hosts, our guests, our experts, you can always go to KiKiRichardson.com. There you'll be able to purchase a copy of my book, The Other Woman Code of Conduct, What Every Other Woman Should Know, and Men Too. And you'll also be able to purchase PDA merchandise and listen to some of our archive shows back from when before we were on video. So there's plenty of stuff for you to do. We are a fully interactive show. So if you want to be a part of our dialogue, you're watching right here. We have our interactive chat room right there, right here on YouTube, or you can send us a tweet at PDA_Miss KiKi, or post to our Facebook wall at facebook.com/playing devil's advocate, and we'll get your comments on air throughout the show. Also, if you want your letter, you want some advice, right? You can send a letter to our Ask PDA segment. All you have to do is send an email to pda.radio@gmail.com with Ask PDA in the subject, and we will go ahead and we may feature your letter on our show. If we do feature it, we'll respond back, let you know when we're going to do it so that you can listen in and maybe comment back to us. But again, if you want some advice and you want to hear what we have to say, you can always send us an email to pda.radio@gmail.com, and in the subject, Ask PDA. All right? So I hope you got that. Let me bring on somebody y'all know and love. She is riding shotgun with me as she always does. She is part of my hometown crew. You know her, you love her. She coined phrases like lube is for amateurs. And, you know, she came up with a new one this year. Either you rub it out or I suck it out. I'm just saying, these are her words and not mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me and welcome into the show, Miss Sporty, Spunky, Angel. What up, girly girl?
Yo, what's going on, KiKi?
Man, what's not going on?
Don't go there.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is my last week broadcasting live from Mexico. It's Playing Devil's Advocate. I'm coming home. I'm coming home. See, I upset the balance of things when I was out of the country. Clearly, see what happens when I leave mofos unattended.
Bullshit.
So clearly, my presence is needed. I'm fucking running for president in 2020.
Girl, I got you. Please.
Because clearly there is no
not
pressure.
before your Playboy spread though.
Oh, so I gotta pose nude. Okay, I'm gonna pose nude. I'm gonna have a sex tape released. And then I'm gonna run for president.
Yeah, you got to do something, you know.
Clearly there's no boundaries.
Right.
So I mean, shit. Yeah, look at them. They driving me to drink.
Oh my. Yeah, it's time to get you back over here stateside real quick.
They done drove me to drink. All right. Whew. I don't even know where Rob is. He got caught up at the Mandalay Bay. He started our.
They always hijacking him, so what do we expect?
You know what? Mandalay Bay gonna have to start paying us a fee for stealing him all the time. That's all I'm saying. You know?
I agree.
All right. So tonight's show is no is a complete sentence. And we're talking about setting boundaries. For those of you guys who are not sure what that statement means, no is a complete sentence. So if you've ever been in a situation where you really wanted to say no, but you didn't, or you felt like people were taking your kindness for weakness, this week we are talking to you about how to set boundaries so you don't find yourself saying yes when you don't want to say no, or you don't have a situation where people are taking advantage of you, or you feel like you're being taken advantage of, right? So we're going to talk about some of those, setting those healthy boundaries, and how do you know that your boundary, you don't, have any healthy boundaries set? Like what types of things, happen when you don't set boundaries? Right.
Agreed. Yep.
Right. So I haven't set boundaries for the Mandalay Bay. So clearly they think it's okay to keep stealing Rob.
And it is not. We're going to have to put our foot down on that one.
Right. Because whatever they got going over there is what? No my problem.
Not at all. And that's not his job.
Right. It is not his job. It is not his job.
Come on.
All right. Anyway. So, let's talk about some of those things that would constitute a healthy boundary.
Okay.
You know what? I knew the world was upset. Y'all, I broke my tooth. I ain't gonna even talk about it. But if y'all see me making funny faces, it's not because I'm having a Tourette's moment. It's because I'm trying to. I can't wait till I get home so I can get this fixed. But anyway, because I ain't going to no Mexican dentist. I'm just saying. I've already been to a Mexican hospital. I'll be damned if I go to a Mexican dentist.
You are at your limit, and the boundary.
I am setting the boundary right now, damn it.
No.
I'm setting the boundary right now.
We're done. Gotcha.
All right. So here's something I want you to be mindful of when you are setting boundaries for people. And again, a lot of times people, when we say setting boundaries, people all tend to think we're talking about romantic relationships. And I'm talking about, when I talk about things, I talk about things that are all encompassing, right? It encompasses your intimate relationships. It encompasses your familiar relationships. It encompasses your work relationships, things of that nature. So all of these things can go pretty much across the board. All right. One of the things, and this one is for you, Sporty. Right? You making that face?
I'm finna see if this is gonna be one of my emotional moments. Go ahead.
This is actually especially for you. When you are setting healthy boundaries, or if I am setting healthy boundaries, here's the thing. Fuck your feelings. And fuck mine too, in an instance, right? If you were setting the boundaries for me. And the reason why I say that is because it's not personal, right? It's not like I'm picking you out. It's not like I'm saying, right? It's not that, or anybody else for that matter, right? If they're setting a boundary, don't take it so uber personally, because at the end of the day, they're not setting that boundary for you. They're setting that boundary for themselves. Right? But be mindful that, a lot of this, of how people respond to it, which we'll talk about that later, has a lot to do with the approach to setting that boundary. And we'll talk about that. But you know, so many people get in their feelings when somebody sets a boundary. Why are you making that face? Because you look like you in your feelings right now. Come here, let me help you out.
Because I'm
come
like,
here.
do I take this personally?
Come on, let me help you out.
Mm-hmm.
I just took your feelings out of
my feelings. Got you.
Yes.
My feelings.
I took your feelings out. Go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering, should I take that first, dig personally, or, since it was especially for me, fine.
Now I was being funny when I said it was for you, because we always say you're emotional.
Yes. So my response to that is fine. Fuck you then. Whatever. So it works.
Exactly. See, she got emotional about that. Look, she took it all personal. But here's the thing. The boundaries that people set for themselves is for them. It's not for you. And so if you get all in your feelings and you getting defensive about a boundary they set for them, that says to me, like, say, just use myself for example. If I've set a boundary and you get all in your feelings about those boundaries, what it says to me is that it was your intention to take advantage of this in some way, shape, or form had I not set a boundary. Because if it were not your intention to go too far, why would it bother you that I set a boundary?
Well, now that makes a lot of sense. I really can't argue with that. That makes good sense.
Every now and again, I have a good one. It must be because I broke that tooth that I'm making sense tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and agree with that, because that, because if I flip that coin and I'm the one setting boundaries for myself, I really don't give a fuck how somebody else feels. So why should you fuck about how I feel about their boundaries? So yeah,
right.
I get
and
that.
It's not so much that I don't care how you feel. It's just that I don't care how you feel about this. Because this one isn't up for debate.
Makes
you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Huh?
I said that makes good sense. I'm for that.
Okay. Do you have a boundary? With something that you need to think that people need to take into consideration when they're setting boundaries?
Well, one of the things that I had to learn, I'm going to put myself on the block when setting a boundary about saying no, that I don't have to qualify it with a response. My no is just, I think your statement was so profound with no is a complete sentence. I don't have to say no and go, this is why, or no, but no, because I just want to say no to whatever that is. And that is a boundary I've had to set for myself, to not qualify what my no is. No just means I'm not interested. I don't want to participate. I don't want anything to do with it. So my no can stand alone. And it took me to understand that my no can stand alone. And that was a boundary that I've set for myself. If I say no and I mean no, then it is what it is.
And that's exactly one of the ways that I was going to say for people to set boundaries is say no and mean it. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you set that boundary for a reason. So I don't know if any of you guys that are listening to the show have any recollection of me making this statement before, is that I like the word no. And the reason why I like the word no is because when I say no, it's over. There's nothing else to talk about. That's it. That's the end of the story, right? When I say yes, then I say yes, and now I have to do all that shit that I said yes to.
Right.
So me saying yes to something I really don't want to say yes to, now I got to do all this shit with an attitude or saying, oh, I really don't want to do it. When I could just say no, and that's it. End of it.
And it alleviates so much stress and confusion. Like I'll take business, for example. This person wants a meeting, this person wants a meeting, and they're like just being demanding. And then I just put all these demands on myself, like I got to do this, and this. When I can set boundaries, look, I can meet this person between this time and this time. This time is unavailable time, period. And it takes a lot off of me to have to fulfill everybody else's need for me. Mm-hmm. Because I've set a boundary that says, look, this is when I'm available to you.
And here's the thing about boundaries. The boundaries aren't necessarily for the other people. The boundaries are for yourself.
Well, yeah,
because
because I would drive myself nuts.
Not just you, but other people too.
Mhm.
People will go as far as you allow them to go. So you have to set those boundaries for yourself, because they're going to take your ass along for the ride, even if they dragging you by one leg. So you have to be conscious of that. So for those of you guys who just may be joining us, this is Playing Devil's Advocate. I am your host, Miss KiKi, the consummate provocateur. And today we're talking about no is a complete sentence. And we're talking about setting boundaries, right? We've talked about how when in setting boundaries, when you say no, mean it. Stick with it. You said no for a reason. And the beautiful thing about no is that there's a period after it. That's it. It's not a comma, right? It can even be an exclamation mark, and it's not a question, right? So when I say no, that's it. No justification, no qualification, no explanation.
Done deal.
No, right? We've also talked about how fuck your feelings. It's not about you. Me setting this boundary has absolutely nothing to do with you, but it has everything to do with me and what I'm willing to allow, accept, or tolerate. And if my boundary is too strict for you, then fuck on with somebody else, right? And run all over them.
So do you ever find yourself in a position where you adjust your boundary to accommodate someone else?
No. That's the point of making a boundary, right? I mean, think of like a boundary as a do not enter, a no trespassing sign. When there's a no trespassing sign, or beware of dog, or beware of owner with gun, and you go past that boundary, you expect the consequence, right?
I do.
You expect to either get bit by that dog or shot by that owner.
This is true.
Or prosecuted for trespassing, right?
It's
so
true.
Same thing with your boundaries. If somebody crosses that boundary, then they should expect a consequence, which takes me to my next thing. When somebody crosses your boundary, then you need to speak on it. Does that mean you need to yell, fuss, cuss, and throw stuff? No, that's not what it means. But a lot of us tend to allow people to cross that boundary the first time because we've never articulated what our wants, needs, and expectations are from the beginning, right? So when they cross that boundary that first time, we're like, okay, we're going to let it slide, but we never say anything. It's one thing to let it slide and not there be a penalty for it, right? A consequence. Right. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to speak up about it, because after you don't speak on it the first time, and then it happens the second time, you have now taught that person that behavior is acceptable, or crossing that boundary is okay, or to them that boundary does not exist. So the moment that you decide that you want to speak up against whatever boundary that they done crossed, they looking at you like, why you tripping? Because you were not honest. You were not truthful. You did not speak up and say, you know what? And you don't have to be combative when you speak up about it. Because a lot of times people are not intentionally doing stuff to fuck with you, for lack of a better term. That's not, 9 times out of 10 the situation, right? What happens is that people are going on with their daily lives, and we are very self-involved these days. So all we're doing is moving on along with our agenda, not realizing that we're encroaching on you, and we're somehow, prohibiting you from doing what it is that you want to do or feel, whatever. And so it wasn't intentional. So there's no reason for you to match that unintentional act with hostility or conflict or something. There's no reason for that. You can effectively just say to somebody, you know what? Remember when you did blah, blah, blah? It makes me uncomfortable, or I don't like it because of blah, blah, blah. Or it makes me feel like so-and-so and so-and-so. But don't you ever do that shit again, because blah, blah. That's not productive.
No, and then it causes conflict, and you get away from boundaries, and you get more into, you add more problems to it than probably didn't need to be there to begin with. So
absolutely
causes more drama on both sides.
Boy, I love saying no. Like, no. And you know, the natural reaction when you, it's so funny to me. The natural reaction when people ask you to do stuff and you say no, their natural reaction is to think that you're going to say yes. And the reason why is because typically what they're asking you to do, they don't think is that big of a deal, right? Or in some way they feel entitled to you saying yes. So when you say no, the funniest shit ever is the look of what on their face. It's like,
right,
like,
you get this, what do you mean?
They're like, and then it's why? Well, why not? Because I said no.
And then
I mean, but why?
Bad person.
But I mean, why? No. No means no. Right? And I say that all the time because it's one of those situations where we can't teach our daughters no mean no, right? For when it comes to, and we can't teach our sons no mean no, right? So you don't catch a rape case, right? Exactly. And then, but when I say no, it don't mean no. No means no all the time.
I know the first time somebody, it was one of my good male best friends. We were out somewhere doing something, and we picked up, our third party, our other friend, and the other friend asked him, can we stop there and do this, and he said no, and we both looked at him like, what you mean no? He just asked you to do something for him, and I said, well, why are you not gonna do it? He said, because I don't feel like it, and I said, okay, and then the other friend, he was like, but okay, I need you to do this for me. He said no. He says, I don't feel like it, and I'm not going to. And he went right on by, carrying on with what our initial plan was. And I sat back there like, well, damn, that was effed up. Why would he do that? But then, later on when we were by ourselves, he explained, he's like, look, if I don't put, he called it a barrier, to the point where he understands I'm not his, taxi or whatever the case may be, what it was at that point, then he's going to continue to assume I'm going to just do these things just because he asked me to. So if I start to tell him no, and I don't qualify my no, then, he'll begin to understand you need to make other arrangements to do something and be responsible other than depending on me to do everything for you. And I was like, okay. And that was my first lesson. And you don't have to qualify your no. It is what it is.
Yeah, because they want to know why. Because here's the thing. If I told you why, right? If you ask me to do something, I say no, and I tell you why, you don't think my why is good enough, what that mean? You know what I'm saying? My why for saying no is not up for discussion. It is not to pass some test for you. Right?
And it doesn't make you say yes because you don't like what my why is.
Exactly. My why is mine. See, possessive, belongs to me. So I do the things that I want to do for me that make me okay. That's not that I'm comfortable with, up to the point where I say, yeah, nah, that's uncomfortable for me. That's out of the way for me. That's inconvenient for me. That hurts me. Whatever the reason, I'm saying no. That's where the line is drawn, and I'm not going any further past that line, and I'm not going to allow you to go any further past that line. Now, if you want somebody to go past that line, go and talk to them. Go ask that mofo. Don't ask me. Don't ask me.
It makes sense.
Another thing that we need to be mindful of when we're setting boundaries, healthy boundaries for that. We talked about saying no and mean it. We've talked about when they cross the line, letting them know they've crossed the line. We've talked about fuck your feelings. This don't have nothing to do with your feelings. My boundaries have nothing to do with your damn feelings.
So now, before you go any further, you've said 3 or 4 times already, and I really think it bears an explanation. Talk about healthy boundaries versus other kinds, because, what's a healthy boundary?
A healthy boundary is a boundary that allows you, the person who set it, to live freely, right? Mm-hmm. impeding on anybody else, so to speak. You're not compromising yourself at the expense of someone else. Now, am I saying that's selfish? No. I'm saying it's looking out for self. Are you just running around all willy-nilly saying no all the time? Because saying no all the time can lead you to be solitary, because nobody want to be around you because you seem like you're just evil and mean and you don't care about nobody but yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can lead you to a solitary lifestyle. But if you say yes too much, then now people are walking all over you. You're stressed out. Your feelings are hurt. You're feeling taken advantage of. All of these things. You're having dysfunctional relationships where people just take, and never give anything back. And they don't even think about it, because why are you always giving up shit, right? So they don't think you need it because you always giving it away, whatever it is, right? So in either instance, we always talking about finding that balance in the middle. Either extreme, saying no all the time and saying yes all the time, is unhealthy. So you have to find that balance in the middle, which is those healthy boundaries that says, okay, I can still be there for people without abandoning me.
Makes sense.
I can still extend myself to people without overextending myself. Right?
And that's what keeps the healthy in order. So yes,
that's exactly what
I just thought that barred explanation, because it's like, okay, she keeps saying healthy boundary. So now if they know what a healthy boundary is, they'll know the difference, because I'm sure that there are ways to set boundaries that are unhealthy.
Yes, that's by saying no all the time. See, because again, a boundary is there to keep space, right? It's not there to keep people out. Right? Because if your boundaries are so high, so wide, so deep, so far, you've just imprisoned yourself. You can't get out, and nobody else can get in.
Right.
That's not healthy. But a healthy boundary creates that space for both parties to come and go freely without it being negative.
Understood.
So for those who guys, that's a great question, Sporty. What makes it healthy versus not healthy? Because a lot of us, when we feel like we've been taken advantage of, a lot of times we be like, fuck it, I ain't doing that shit no more. And everybody come to me and it's no. That's not healthy. Right? And the reason why it's not healthy, because you are now punishing someone else for behavior that you allowed to exist, right? So to just shut it completely down it's not healthy, right? Because now you're not in a position where you haven't learned the boundary yet. It's all or nothing. You have to find that midway where, okay, I can do this up to this point. It's kind of like when I was talking about the difference between being truthful and being honest.
Yes.
Right. And for those of you guys who don't know, KiKi's theory of there being a difference between being truthful and being honest. Being truthful is absolute, pretty much, right? The truth is what it is. It's not subjective. If you put it through a battery of tests, it's going to stand the test of that test that you put it through. It doesn't matter if I test it, you test it, she tested, he tested. It's still going to be what it is. 1 + 1 is always going to be 2, right? That's true. Now, honest is you're being as honest as you can. And that means that's up to a point.
Right.
Right. And that's based on perspective. That's based on whether you think it's going to be hurtful or in some way affect you negatively. Right. So that has a stopping point. It's like honesty goes to here and truth takes it over the top.
Gotcha.
Right.
That makes sense.
It's the same thing in terms of setting those boundaries. When it's absolute like that, then it sets you up for negative impact.
So then my next question would be,
all right, what's your questions, girl?
Girl, yes, because it's interesting when you're peeling away at how to do this. you know, you don't want it to get to be one extreme or the other. And nobody wants the feeling of being, you know, taken advantage of or feel like they're being used, but they also still want to be a support system, you know, when that's permissible. So when you have, you know, people in these different types of scenarios, when do you know, when will a person know when to set a boundary? Because some people really don't know that they need to set up boundaries for themselves, not in a good or bad way, but there needs to be some type of regulatory system within yourself to know I need to set this boundary for me so I know how far to go.
Okay.
So when does a person know to do that?
Okay, one of the ways, and I equate this to like working out, right? You know to stop lifting something when there's pain, right? That's when you like, fuck that shit hurts. You drop that. When you reach out and you touch some shit and it's hot, you drop it, right? Same concept when it comes to when it's time to set a boundary. When that shit becomes painful to you, when it has burned you, literally and figuratively, if it is in a way compromising who you are, right? If you are putting yourself at a complete disadvantage for someone else, right? We always talk about the airplane methodology, that whole theory of put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else. So when you're finding yourself doing more for others than you are able to take care of yourself, that's problematic. So that's how you know when those things are starting to have an adverse effect on you, that it's time to start setting some boundaries. Does that mean shut everything down? No. That means that you now need to start implementing some roadblocks, some speed bumps, if you will. Right?
Gotcha.
You ain't necessarily shut the road off, but you might need to put some roadblocks. So I mean, some what they call them? Speed bumps, so motherfuckers just not rolling through your shit like they don't give a hell.
Right. If you're gonna walk on my love, at least take off your shoes. Something.
Wipe your feet or something.
Anything.
All so right. That's the good way. That's a good meter to use.
All right. So let's throw a scenario in this. So you have, let's say you have a relationship. One, a male-female relationship, and the female has boundaries about when she's going to kiss them for the first time or sleep with them, or, she has all of these boundaries set up about, okay, this on the first date, this on the fifth, they have their plan of action set up. And then here you have, Mr. Suitor, like, okay, I got this new girl, and he has his boundaries set up. When boundaries clash, where do you begin the compromise? Because you want to set your boundaries, and this is what they are here. This person has their boundaries, and this is what they are here. So you're going to bump heads. So when you say your no is your no, when do you know is the opportune time to compromise or set a new structure of boundaries in order for them to work and you to coexist together?
It's funny you should ask that, Sporty, because that was actually on one of my lists for how to know to set healthy boundaries. And one of them is focusing on the why. Why did you set that boundary in the first place?
Okay.
Right. If you saying, I'm not doing this because when I did this, Tyrone, blah, 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 blah. Right. That boundary is based on pain from a situation that you allowed to happen in this case. But if you say, you know what, I'm not going to do this because it clouds my judgment, and I want to be able to proceed in this situation with a clear head. That's a healthy way.
Healthy.
Right. So if you're focused, if your why is intact, then that's how you'll know that you need to compromise. Because if you articulate why that boundary is in existence to that other person, and not all and why I gotta change. You know, if you're not defensive and you're not all of that, because you should never have to defend your boundaries, but you can explain it to them so that they can have a clear understanding of where you're coming from. So once you've done that, you know, that now puts that person in a position to make a decision.
And they'll either accept that boundary or they won't. Or
they'll compromise and say, you know what, I get it. Can we do blah, blah, blah?
All right. Let me give you another one. Let's go professional with this one. All right. So you have, let's just take you and me, for example. Okay. You have specific boundaries about when our show assignments are due. And that boundary is to be followed. You know, you don't want to hear any exceptions, even though we may give them. The boundary is still set that, you know, no matter what's going on, whether we get a new president or not, at 4 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that assignment needs to be in at the latest. So, do you ever feel there's a need to compromise that boundary?
Well, I don't think that's a boundary. I think that's a deadline. What I think would be a boundary is to not have respect for my time. That's a boundary that I have set, is that you respect my time as I respect yours. I'm not wasting yours, right? So if it gets to a point where now I feel like they're not respecting my time based on a pattern they've created, then of course it's time to have a conversation or change the nature of the situation. Does that mean I'm supposed to compromise what I want, but to accommodate them? No. Would it mean that I need to change what I want by excluding them? Quite possibly. But the boundary that I set has nothing to do with the actual assignment. It has to do with respecting my time, because there are other things that need to go and play. And so by missing that deadline, you're not respecting my time enough for me that I have allotted to do what I need to do.
All right. Now, as we all know, boundaries or anything everything has a consequence. Good or bad, right or wrong, whatever. Everything has a consequence. So let's say, for instance, and I don't know why I'm going down these rabbit holes, but anyway.
No, this is good. Keep going. Don't stop.
You have, say for instance, you have a model. Okay. Let's take our new first lady elect. Okay. I know, but hear me out. So we already know that she has some inappropriate media out.
Is it really inappropriate?
Well, it's inappropriate to some, because it was her choice to do. And in making that choice, I'm pretty sure the last thing in her mind was, well, I'm going to be first lady. I can't pose for these pictures, So now that she is in this position, there needs to be a boundary set that she shouldn't do those things any longer, or should there be? Because she's already done it. And I
think that boundary has nothing to do with. I don't think that boundary has anything to do with us as the public. That would be in terms of her relationship. Now, do I think it's proper for everybody to know what the first lady's twat looks like? Probably not, right? Because you have to think about a lot of, we live in a misogynistic culture where there are a lot of world leaders who already don't have a lot of respect for women to begin with, and now they're looking at you, a quote unquote world leader. And they know what you see every single night, right? So, do I think it's it can ultimately be a bad thing, but again, that's between them. That has nothing to do. I don't think that there's any boundary that we need to set. I don't think that there should be any law in the books to say the first lady can never pose nude.
Agreed. It's her prerogative. Do you think there's a such thing as healthy boundaries when it comes to what society thinks or wants?
I do think that there are healthy boundaries because those are the things that keep the balance. Those are the things that keep order, right? Those are the things that keep us civilized, which we are very much moving far away from every day. We are moving from a civilization as we have in a long time. However, I do think that, some of those things would be following those golden rules: do unto other that you would have them do unto you, respecting life, respecting, all of those types of things. But in a society, what happens is that people follow the lead. We know that people are sheeple. They are sheep who follow along. And so if you don't lead by example, then you'll have people who follow that.
True.
I.e., our new president-elect.
This is true. I agree. So
which means Americans should have set boundaries for what they will and will not allow to be their representation out here in the world. And we failed ourselves miserably in doing that. And like I said to you guys before, I am not in America right now. And to see the perception, or to see from somebody from the international perspective what it looks like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
Well, that's something to be said. That's a lot to carry. And then, you speak about, currently how you're in an international setting, because you're not here right now. Mm-hmm. And do you have any boundaries as an American citizen with how you receive the information from, our fellow world humans, that look out, they're outside looking in at what's going through here? Like, so you let's say you're having a conversation with someone over there about what's happening here, and they're giving you their point of view and what it looks like to them and how things are going. So what sets up in your self about how you respond to something like that? You can't
do it the same way I do anything. When I'm exchanging information, when I'm in a discourse with somebody, I listen to their point of view. I try to see where they're coming from. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree, and sometimes I can explain myself to the point where they understand my point of view. If not, we agree to disagree. I'm not defensive about it. I can understand why some people see the things that they do. Because again, when you're not in these boundaries, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but when you're not in the United States, you have to think about the way information is disseminated in other places. Mm-hmm. So if you're going only by what the information has provided to you, that's the only picture you have. So that's the only perspective you have, which means that's the only opinion you can have. And
do you think you being where you are, do you think being where you are during this time, and not just about the presidency, but about everything that has happened since you've been gone, do you see things differently now as opposed to how you would have seen them if you were here at home?
The only thing that I see differently is that I'm confident that the way that I believe that people thought of us internationally is true. I have confirmation that what I believed to be the image that we were projecting is true. That's the only thing.
Gotcha.
Which I'm embarrassed.
Agreed. I can see that. I would be too, and I mean, even though I'm still here, in good old land of Lincoln, it's still embarrassing. But, like we said, we're not going down that rabbit hole. So let's say one of the biggest things I've noticed is how people set family boundaries. And this is a big one, to me, because there's so many different family members and different dynamics, how you have to handle people. How do you set boundaries with your family members as an adult that doesn't compromise the relationship with those family members?
That's a very tricky thing. And the reason why is that you have to be comfortable. And you also have to be diplomatic. You still have to be sensitive to other people's feelings, but you don't have to compromise your happiness for other people. And by that, I mean, if your family members are being unreasonable, it's okay to say no. If you saying no compromises your relationship with your family member because you said no, then whose problem is that? Is that now your problem or is it their problem? So here's the thing. It takes me to another. Y'all, I'm being bad. You see this?
That's too much chocolate. You crossing the line.
I am. No, but what I mean by that, and it takes me to another one of my my things for setting healthy boundaries, is that you can't allow other people to guilt you into moving your boundaries. Because again, you set that boundary for a reason. And if those people cannot respect your boundaries, then we're going to use my theory about furniture. You got to start treating people like furniture.
Move
Do
around.
you throw away that piece of furniture that you like? You might like that end table, right? But every time you go out into the living room, you stub your toe on it. Are you going to throw that shit away just because you keep stubbing your toe? No, you just going to rearrange that shit so it can you can still have use for it, but you're not supposed to spite your face. And it's the same thing. You have to reposition mofos in your life.
This is true. That makes a lot of sense.
You got to throw them out. Just rearrange that ass. That means you got to move that shit downstairs in the basement in the corner somewhere. then that's what you do. If you only bring it out for holidays because you have to put shit on it because people coming over, you know what I mean? You still have a use for it. But you in the position that it's in right now, it's causing you pain. It's causing you distress. So it's got to go.
That makes sense to me. Well, one of the boundaries that I think we're about to cross is the fact that I'm thirsty and I really, really need something to drink behind. Yeah, see, you're drinking in front of me. You know, that's good tequila, I know. Chocolate, tequila, you cutting up over there. Get yourself home, honey. Get on home. So I'd like to drink something, if that's okay.
Don't ask me, ask your producer. Cousin Chan, she the one to come up with the drink of the week.
Producer, are you available to give me a frosty beverage?
Well, I'm available to give you something.
Oh,
all
okay,
right.
then.
Oh my! I don't know if you want it.
All right, people. Tonight's drink of the week. We don't have any music. We're gonna go off the cuff here. So tonight's drink of the week is, I think it's pronounced Harikiri. And what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna use a 1/2 ounce of tequila, a 1/2 ounce of Irish whiskey, a 1/4 ounce of salt, and a 1/4 ounce of Tabasco. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to pour the Tabasco sauce, the tequila, and the whiskey into a shot glass, and we're going to lay the salt right on top of it. And you're going to drink it back. And that is Harikiri. All right, guys, be safe, enjoy, drink responsibly. I'll talk to y'all next week or later on tonight.
Are you really going to be talking to anybody after drinking that shit?
Right. Can you speak after drinking that?
Well, I did it because, people killed themselves yesterday. So.
They did? They committed harikiri?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure did.
Let me tell you something. If I could drink, I'm telling you, when I woke up this morning, I would have took a shot. I already knew when I went to bed. It was like 8 something. I went to bed and I already knew what the business was going to be at that point. And I was like, I can't. And I woke up and I was just like, fuck me.
And see, that is so funny. I did the same
not in a good
thing.
way.
I couldn't. I was like, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to deal with this. I was like, call me later. And, I got a phone call about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up. I was like, okay, so what happened? And I could tell by the sound in his voice, like, you know, I was like, damn, did he really pull this shit off? But, you know, hey, you know, it is what it is.
Excuse me.
Bless their hearts.
Let's move right on along.
Moving along, as I drink, you know, the boundary that I have, that's been set for myself.
Okay.
So, you know what? That brings another question to me.
Okay.
So check this shit out. So,
Is.
you know, I was telling you that I have this specific, you know, guideline boundary that's been set for me for the next 30 days. That my only beverage choices are this lovely unsweetened black tea and water, right? And me no like, you know, but I have to do it. So
right.
When people break their own boundaries, you know, what is it that they can do to repair that? Because I've noticed some people, you know, will, you know, like people who are on diets. It's like, oh my God, I fell off and I did this. And instead of getting back on the horse, they stay off of it. You know, what's a healthy way to regain your own integrity with your own boundaries?
Don't play the blame game. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Recognize that you're human and that we're not always successful at things the first time, right? Or even the second time, hell, or even the third time.
Understood.
So with that being said, you now need to reevaluate the way that you were attempting to go about attaining that goal. Did you not set attainable goals for yourself? Did you not set milestones for yourself? Did you not have an accountability partner to hold you accountable? Things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you get yourself back on track.
That makes sense. I like that idea. Okay. Because I noticed, and I asked that question because I noticed that there are some people who will cross their own line and then they, you know, they're like, oh my God, I did this, but I need to do this. So let me get myself back together. And they're right back on track. Then you have those that do what you just said. You know, they might play the blame game like, oh my God, I did this, but I did this because, and this is the reason why. And they just keep going and going and going, but never acknowledge, okay, let me get myself back together. They never come to the solution of what they need to do to pull it right back in together and keep going. You know, and I think it's really effective if you explain to people that even though we set these boundaries for ourselves, yes, we are human. Yes, sometimes things happen, but that doesn't mean you can't renegotiate with yourself about how to keep these boundaries in place.
Did you say renegotiate?
With yourself.
I don't think you should be negotiating with yourself because then you're making deals, right?
Okay.
I don't necessarily know if I feel comfortable with a person making a deal with themselves, but sometimes that's the incentive that people need. I don't know. That might be what motivates you. However, I just want people to be clear that negotiating and reward, you know, all of that stuff can get to a murky territory because after a certain amount of time, that doesn't work anymore. So you're going to have to keep trying to flip it and change it and flip it and change it. So just be very careful is all I'm saying.
Makes sense. I can understand that. I can. Well, you know, I did come up with this little thing. I don't know if you saw it or not, but boundaries, you know, means a certain word to me, you know, and you know how I like to play with words and letters and you know, make something out of it. But boundaries is another word for a contract to me. And how, you know, and this is how I keep some things in line for myself. There's like a set of rules that I follow. And what contract means to me is, you know, like the C is that I have the initial conversation up front, whether it's business or personal, you know, about what works for me. And then the O means the open communication. That's regular and it will keep down stress and confusion. You know, you keeping everything on the table. The N is, you know, I never close my mind to what I firmly have as a standard for myself. You know, if this is what it is, then leave it at that. I shouldn't have to take my standards away because somebody feels like, you know, they want to be the exception to my personal rule. The T is, I feel like timing is everything. You can't wait, you know, until this is the right time. I don't think there's ever a right time to do anything. If you're going to do it, then you just do that, you know, and you stick to your guns. You know, don't have a lack of follow through. R is to remember to respectfully agree to disagree when discussing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You know, those are your boundaries. And like you said, you shouldn't have to qualify what that is. A, you act with integrity. If you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be honest with? You know, the C again, if someone crosses the boundary, like you said, you know, you call them on it. You know, you don't just let it go, because if you let it go, they'll feel like it wasn't really that important of a boundary. So why should I respect it if you don't? And finally, the T is you always take time to acknowledge your own accountability in all of your situations when it comes to the boundaries that you set for yourself. And this is how you keep your checks and balances of your life in order, as a way to let people know you mean business when you say what you say. There's some power behind your no. They don't just say, oh, well, she said no, but she don't mean it. So that's how it works in my world, you know, and maybe that can help somebody else too.
Okay, so go ahead in the chat room if you could and finish up the R, because I left off at R trying to post everything while I was having a coughing attack.
Oh.
I was trying to keep that intact and listen to what you were saying at the same time.
I'm trying to keep it all intact. Let's see if I can just put it all in there. Right.
Okay. All right. So that's a good way. That's a good measuring stick that you can use in order to keep yourself on track and make sure that you are setting healthy boundaries for yourself. Another thing too is understanding nobody's feelings are more important than yours. Nobody else's agenda is more important than yours, because guess what? It's your life. You put somebody else's agenda, somebody else's feelings, somebody else's everything ahead of yours, then now you're doing it for them. You're not doing it for you. And guess what? Life ain't gonna be so fun for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to set boundaries. I know women are notorious for it when it comes to like their children and their husbands. They put them first and never put themselves anywhere on the radar. And then when their kids are grown, or their husband done left, right, or they left him because he's a slob or whatever the case, right, or he passes away, you don't know what to do with yourself because you did not put yourself first. You've compromised yourself to a point where you no longer exist. You're just a mere servant or a minion for those you have served, meaning your husband and your kids.
Right, exactly.
So you have to set boundaries. If you're mothers, you need to set boundaries and you know, and do that thing for yourself so that you can keep you healthy in an emotional place. Okay? Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Oh, jeez. This is hot in here. That's why I'm starting to cough. All right, so I'm trying not to show too much Cleveland.
Girl. We look, that's a boundary we have no choice but to cross. It's here. Where is he going?
All right, and so I mentioned this briefly when we talk about setting boundaries. You need to be truthful with yourself.
Not honest, but truthful.
Not honest, but truthful. Right? Be truthful to yourself about, one, why you allow the situations to come to pass in the first place. Two, why you no longer want that for yourself. And three, how you plan on stopping and setting those boundaries so that you are not feeling the negative effects all the time.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's not going to be pretty. Nobody said it was going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said it was going to be easy. but it's necessary.
That makes sense. I can understand that.
Definitely necessary. So I'm gonna go over here and check the chat room and see if there are any comments in terms of anything that they think would be necessary to set a healthy boundary. Hey Chan, do you have a healthy boundary a way for people to set boundaries that's legal? Crickets. Okay, I guess not. I guess hers would be to just be antisocial. She don't want to deal with nobody. Just play video
But
games.
that's her boundary. She's good at no.
No, actually,
she's not good at no. Shut the front door. All right.
But when she says no, though, here's the thing. She does, you know what I mean? She's not good at no, but when she does say no, it's no. It's like end of the road, shut the shit down.
Like,
no.
Don't even think about asking me anymore. The answer is absolutely not.
And you know what? That goes to setting healthy boundaries. Sometimes, you know, we allow people to push us and push us and push us and push us and push us, right? Yes, we talk about picking our battles and no one wins, you know. However, if you keep letting the line, she done dropped off the daggone string.
Shut up.
If you continue to let people help you move that line, by the time you get to the wall, your back is up against the wall, then it's explosive. And so we have to be careful that we are not allowing people to keep moving our line for us until we backed up against the wall.
From the windows to the wall.
Right. Because what happens is when you corner, nobody puts baby in the corner. When you put somebody in the corner,
you got problems.
It ain't gonna go well for somebody. Mm-hmm. Somebody involved in that scenario. It's not gonna go well for you.
This is true.
So it might be you, it might be that person, or whatever. But it's not gonna be a good thing when you allow people to push you to that point. What's up, Rocky Miller? I see you there.
Now, do you think that there is a such thing as? Well, no. Let me take that back. What would you consider an unhealthy boundary?
What do you mean?
Meaning, you know, you have things that are, and I asked this question, it's a professional one. So I have a girlfriend that is in I would call it a dead end job. You know, she lets people walk all over her to the point where she's just really trying to keep her job. So she does all these extra things so that she feels like she's not replaceable. You know, she wants to make herself indispensable, or however you want to put it. And she's not structuring her world to where, you know, she is a human being and not a machine. So I think that's unhealthy. But she feels like the boundary to keep doing, she does this in order to keep her position where she is.
Let me tell you to tell your friend this.
She's listening.
Sweetie, I don't care how much work you do. You are replaceable. You want to know why? Because it's not your business. The only time that you are irreplaceable is when it's your shit and you created it. So for as long as you're working for somebody else, there's somebody else that can pick up the slack where you aren't. Because if you drop dead tomorrow, you don't think they're going to hire somebody to replace your ass?
There you go.
Because that's what you need to be focused on. Don't focus on losing your job. Focus on losing your life. What's more important? Focus on the fact that you working yourself to the bone. You can fuck around and have a stroke, a heart attack, whatever. And guess what? They still gonna continue on doing what they were doing like you weren't ever there. Mm-hmm. Business ain't gonna shut down because you no longer exist.
This is true.
So the way you make yourself indispensable and irreplaceable is understand that you yourself, not what you do for someone else, you yourself are the irreplaceable thing.
I think that's a very good explanation, and it makes very good sense. Do you think you've ever set any boundaries that were, what's a good word? That were just plain ridiculous?
Have I set a ridiculous boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. But you know, again, that ridiculous is subjective because it may not have seemed ridiculous to me.
To you, right?
It may have seemed ridiculous to other people. Just like last week when Mo was on the show, you know, just like last week when Mo was on the show, and our topic was it's just sex, damn. And she had a boundary that she had set up. Now, some people might have thought her boundary was absolutely ridiculous, and her wife for setting that boundary was ridiculous. But to her, she didn't. It was completely okay to her. So again, that's subjective. Do you think, in knowing me, that I have some boundaries that are absolutely ridiculous?
Oh, no.
Okay, you just saying that because I'm here. But if I wasn't, I'm sure
no,
you'd have.
Because I think one thing I will say, I think your boundaries create the space for other people